This is a public service announcement to all who are comfortable enough to shame another on their progress in life. On a personal note, this is an open letter to my son's paternal grandmother. The fact that I have to address you this way makes me sad. I could have never imagined in my wildest dreams or nightmares that I would have to do this. However, enough is enough with the audacity you had to shame a 5-year-old on the spectrum with a Christmas, quote-unquote, gift this year. For the last 4 years of mistreatment, I stayed silent. Today, that ends. For over a decade, you were a woman I wholeheartedly looked up to. I admired you. I loved you unconditionally. I always respected you. I blindly trusted you. I was convinced you could do no wrong. I always appreciated you and openly verbalized it often to you and others. I always showed love and respect through all of the kindness I had given to you, your immediate and extended family. I never looked to receive anything because I am always motivated to give through my heart. At the time, I was just thankful to be a part of a family with people who I believed cared about me the way I cared about them. Now I understand it was a false sense of security based off of superficial conditions. That is what makes this letter so hard to write. I have contemplated many times in the past few years how a family who came across as loving could be anything but. I have come to learn people cannot give what they do not have. If you are openly judging a child's progress, whether he is on the spectrum or not, it is clear you do not know what love is. How can you show love when you do not understand it? Love is an action, not just a word. Love is unconditional and all-encompassing. Love is encouraging, not discouraging. Love is supportive and safe. I am sharing this with you in hopes that you can break the cycle of apathy in your spirit. I still recall the moment I knew something was off. It was after your son put his hands on me in January 2020 for the first time. You were in my home the night it happened. You watched me clutch my baby who was barely a year old. You and I had the same fears that night. You cried, you pled, you begged your son to leave with you that night because you did not trust him. You were afraid he would become violent again. When he refused to leave, you waited with us until he passed out. From that point forward, it was all downhill. My child and I endured nothing but cycles of abuse between you and your family. In fact, it was your immediate family who taught me just how many forms of abuse exist in less than 3 years. I was completely naive and oblivious to the fact that you could be betrayed by the ones you love and trust the most. 2020 was the start of insidious attacks that led you down a low vibrational path you clearly stayed on if I am writing this letter in 2024. I can honestly say I am not surprised by your most recent toxic act of judgment towards your own grandson. It was clear to me in April 2021 that any grandmother, father, and aunt who could use their own flesh and blood as a pawn the way you, your son, and daughter did had some serious dysfunction beneath the surface. I was sick to my stomach that 3 adults my child should be able to trust would intentionally withhold him from his mother, who he had never spent more than 2 hours away from without any care or concern for his well-being. Not you, your son, or daughter ever considered how that would affect my child. This act of betrayal towards a 2-year-old told me everything I could ever need to know about who you all are. I wish I could say that was the worst of it, but the worst of it was only yet to come. May 23rd, 2021 was the last time I saw your face, and I could not be more grateful. The outrageous arrogance of you to enter my home after I politely asked you to leave immediately because you were no longer welcomed was sickening. You had no problem walking in my home calling me crazy and evil, then proceeding to insult my home because 2 kids were playing and toys were all over the floor. I could not grasp the fact that you felt uncomfortable with the mess in my home, but comfortable enough to walk into it uninvited and not leave when asked. Please make it make sense to me. The fact is, you tried to bully me in my own home. The way you would not leave until I told my cousin to get her son dressed because we would go instead says much about your character. I had 2 children to protect and was even willing to leave my own home so they did not have to be around the poison you were trying to bring in with you. Thank God my cousin was there to see it, because the way you portrayed yourself that day, most people would not believe it since you were all about being prim and proper in front of others. Clearly, you did not care that day, and it showed. My last experience with your darkness was on July 25th, 2021. a date I could not forget if I wanted to. The irony of you suggesting your son call the cops on me and have me locked up in a psych ward because I was crazy for not letting my child go back to your house after my last two experiences with you is literally crazy. What makes it so ironic is the way you cried and begged me to hang up on the cops the night your son put his hands on me. You knew he would have been arrested immediately for the marks on my neck and arms. You also knew that he would have deserved it. You knew when he was cursing at you, F the cops because he wasn't going anywhere, just how serious it would have been for him. There was something about you standing before me with tears in your eyes, begging me to hang up for your son's sake as I was cradling my baby in my arms that led me to show you compassion in a way that you never showed me. This was your nightmare unfolding before your eyes. Your fear of this seemingly perfect family image falling apart and people knowing who your son really was motivated you to make some unhealthy choices moving forward. This act of betrayal was the lowest. The way you encouraged your son to call the cops and lie about me felt like a despicable violation. However, you failed to realize in that moment that you only hurt your son and grandson. You never once considered the consequences of your actions. You never once considered that this was one action that had consequences that cannot be undone. Too much damage was done after this. I cannot even imagine how you could justify your actions when you have zero reasons to have any animosity towards me, or how you could justify using an innocent child as a pawn. Ultimately, you have to live with this and the aftermath that comes from ego and entitlement. As a mother, I am sure you recognize that your son has never been the same since. It is awful how he lives with guilt and shame because he went against his better judgment. His words, not mine. A person's character will always speak for itself. The fact is, when I had no choice but to get a temporary restraining order against your son, he was bold enough to take his chances and violated the restraining order, leaving me a letter. I was brave enough to take my chances, believing that the past 2 months of supervised visits with his son was enough to make him want to be better. I had two choices: call the cops and report the violation, which came with severe consequences he would have created for himself, or look at the bigger picture and think about how this would affect my son moving forward. That meant I had to take my ego out of it. Even though I was scared of what could happen, I chose to lead with love and be hopeful your son meant what he said in the letter. I chose love and never showed up to court. I compromised my safety because I was his target in hopes that my child would have the father he deserves while giving your son the opportunity to make things right after all of the wrong. From what I understood after our many conversations over the years, you never felt safe sharing certain details about your life with your extended family for fear of their judgment. With this in mind, in connection to your debacle of a Christmas gift, which you just so happened to give my child on Christmas Eve, the day my grandmother passed away, I cannot help but feel like you are embarrassed of my child's progress because he is not where you think he should be at 5 years old. I wonder if this critical judgment was given to your other grandson on the spectrum when he was younger. I wonder if the spirit of judgment that lives inside with you is the reason your son, daughter, and other grandsons feel the need to be perfect in an imperfect world. I wonder if you realize how your fears were unintentionally projected on them. I wonder if you understand the unrealistic pressure you put on them to be a certain way guides them away from being authentic to who they truly are. I wonder if you know that is why your son never felt comfortable being who he innately is in front of you and wears a mask every time. I wonder if you have ever considered how your actions affect others, especially your family. I wonder. To wrap this up, I will leave you with this. I am my son's biggest advocate, not just his mother. With that being said, you have no right to pass your unwarranted opinions about how my 5-year-old son progresses in life with anything when you cannot even take a look at yourself or your 46-year-old son's progress in life. It is borderline insane. What grandmother gives their 5-year-old grandson with special needs underwear for Christmas when she knows he is still in pull-ups? It was shameful and shameless. Do you have any idea about what your grandson has been through in the last year and a half since he started potty training? Do you know about his digestive system and the medical issues that he has? Do you know about his severe anxiety over the potty and how it has caused him to self-harm? Do you have any idea about his sensory issues that make wearing regular underwear uncomfortable for him? But really, my biggest question is, do you even care about him at all? Or do you only care about how he makes you look to others? The truth is, you do not know anything about your own grandson, because if you added up the amount of time you spent with him in the last 5 years, it would not even equal a month's worth of time. My son is neither a pawn or a prop for you to parade around. The next time you want to shame someone, I invite you to look inward and ask yourself what part of you needs to be healed. The truth is, happy, healed, healthy-minded individuals do not behave the way you did the past few years. I promise you this, my child will never have to feel the way his father did growing up. My child is whole and complete with who he innately is. I am his mother, not you. I embrace and encourage my son's authenticity every day. You may have imposed your unrealistic, unreasonable expectations on your children and the other grandsons you help raise, but you have no place or business in my child's life with your grotesque, judgmental views. Keep them to yourself. Also, do not buy my child any more gifts because they will end up in the trash just like the underwear. I invite you to invest your money elsewhere in a way that will serve your highest good. Perhaps a wise investment would be in a medical professional that can help you release your judgmental mindset and help you open your heart to love. Buying anyone gifts meant to humiliate them is morally wrong 100% of the time. I am thankful I have taught my child not to personalize another's dysfunctional actions of contempt because they are not about him. They are about the ones acting on them. Finally, thank you. Thank you for teaching me what the good in goodbye means. One last thing. I can still hear you on repeat in my head telling your son and daughter maldición de lengua for over a decade anytime they said something to you about yourself that you did not like. I wonder if you recognize where they got it from. Now, let me remind you, the curse of tongues is real. Words carry energy that can build one up or break one down. I pray you learn how to start building others up and stop breaking them down. I pray that you release all that is weighing you down so you can stop projecting it on everyone around you. I pray you learn what love is and effectively embody it. From my heart to God's ears for this new year. Regards, your ex-daughter-in-law.